Hi, I'm Melissa Bill, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Nancy Lashine. She's the founder at Park Madison Partners. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Melissa. Good to be here.
So, real estate in general is a big topic right now between the interest rates and just different areas booming, some not doing so well. And that's in whether it's residential, commercial. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background and what you do at Park Madison Partners?
Sure. Well, Park Madison Partners is a firm that I founded 19 years ago. We can talk about how I got there, but just the firm itself is focused on institutional investors investing in real estate. So it's different than, you buying a house or individuals owning smaller investments. This is really about building big institutional portfolios, typically tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of investment at a time. That would be part of a larger portfolio, either for a sovereign wealth fund or a public pension plan, a corporate pension plan, an endowment, a foundation, who have a stream of liabilities that they use to pay out. So this is one of the assets that matches their stream of liabilities.
Okay. And now you were going to get to, so how did you, can you take us back to the beginning? How did you start in this industry and grow the company?
Sure. Well, I grew up in New York City. I had a very academic background, and when I went to college, I majored in dance. I ended up with a BFA in dance, but I needed a job, so I worked. I worked at the advertising agency, and it was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I actually worked in their computer department, and they sent me off to Paris. I thought business was kind of more interesting, but I still wanted to be a professional dancer. My father didn't think that. My father was really concerned about how I'd make a living. I had a family background where work was really part of the focus of everybody's life. And so I ended up going to business school at his behest. And the most interesting people I found in business school were in the real estate space because they were largely entrepreneurs and they were fun and it was exciting. And so I ended up out of business school going to work in the real estate department of an investment bank.
And so you knew did you know from the beginning you wanted to kind of gear more towards commercial and the commercial end of things, or more not just like your regular residential type of real estate?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't real. I was really focused on investments. So, I mean, I could have done investments in something else like private equity or something, but it was real estate was just the place where I was the teaching assistant for the real estate program at the business school. It's a good example of mentorship that the professor that I was the TA for helped me find my first job. Needless to say, with the BFA in dance, I was not your typical candidate coming out with an MBA from Columbia looking for an investment banking job. So it was very helpful to have somebody say, you should really talk to this woman.
Right. And see, yeah, exactly. And that's when you never know where the doors are going to lead you and open to. And now, can you share a little bit about how your family shaped your career path? You kind of went into it a little bit, but
Sure. My dad owned the Park Madison coffee shop, which was how we named the firm, Park Madison Partners. My mother's father died in the influenza epidemic of 1918. And so she grew up without a father, and her mother worked every single day of her life at a corner newsstand in Williamsburg. And so work was always part of the ethos of our family. Um, and it was just assumed that I would have to support myself, which was somewhat unusual in my generation. A lot of parents probably thought their daughters would get married and be, moms. But I was just fortunate. I guess my parents didn't have that expectation in and of itself. So my father um, I applied to business school. My sister's a doctor. I was like, I would be a terrible doctor. And so business school seemed like a logical choice. And interestingly, even after I had been an investment banker, gone to work at a real estate private equity firm, was married and had three children, my mother, who was a school teacher and a guidance counselor, had said to me, never stop working. Just always keep your foot in the game, which again, I think is very good advice, but was unusual advice for my generation.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I know even now too, you don't want to it's always my mom kind of instilled the same thing. She was a hard worker. She was like more of the computer analyst and that type of thing, and went through a lot of the different coding schools. And same thing, she told me like you need to be able to support yourself and have that, have those things as a backup plan.
Yeah, and I think that at the end of the day, children learn a lot by example also. My mom was a school teacher and then went back to get a graduate degree and was a guidance counselor and a college advisor. And, she did that. That was a really important part of her life. So anyway, so yeah, so I think, work was part of the rhythm of life. I think it gave me resilience and independence and always has.
And give you, and for listeners who may not be familiar with the specifics of private equity real estate, could you kind of go into that and describe some of the things that you do?
Well, so, um, private equity is really just a subset of the investment universe and institutional investors. So that would be, the people that invest the funds for your pension plan, or if you're a teacher in the state of New York, you would have a pension plan and someone is investing that money for you. If you are part of a university, and there's an endowment that's paying your scholarship, there's a university endowment pot of funds that's paying for you. So, um, we work with the chief investment officers of those pots of capital and then their chief real estate officers and the people who work with them, to manage the money that's invested in real estate specifically. And typically, real estate will have 10 to 20% of the allocation of the whole fund. And it will be there to generate either what's called core type returns, which would be current income plus inflation, or more opportunistic type returns, which would be, in today's parlance, say a 15 to 20% total return. And so investors will put together a plan and will invest across that risk and return spectrum. And we help them look for the opportunities to find a diversified portfolio of investments to generate the returns they're looking for.
And as far as risk, I mean, real estate has still stayed to be one of the more stable, probably investments. Would you agree?
Yeah, so real estate, in the context of a total portfolio is more stable than, say, private equity or equities, obviously higher, but it has an equity component. So it's a higher return than just fixed income. So it sits somewhere between fixed income and equity on the return spectrum, and on the risk spectrum as well.
And now, what's your core business and the unique values that you offer your clients?
Well, so our clients are, real estate owners and operators, and capital is the lifeblood of their business. It's the oxygen of real estate. Without it, nothing grows. And so we help make sure that, we put some of our clients just in business by helping them find initial investors and structuring products to get capital for them. Some of them we help just grow their business if they're already in business and expand their capital base. Um, from the institutional investor standpoint, we have particularly strong relationships with a couple of thousand institutional investors. And we work with them. I mean, they know us, they know the quality of the work that we do. So we provide, leverage on their time, because if we call them about something, they know we've done extensive due diligence already on the product. And also, some assurance that it's been well researched when they go and do their own homework. So it's confirmation, if you will.
On that. And now, for listeners who are aspiring entrepreneurs and want to kind of get into something like this and are curious about the industry, what does a typical day look like for someone working like in at Park Madison?
Well, it's different. I mean, we have a big team today. For me, it's funny. Someone said entrepreneurship is just a daily exercise in solving problems no one wants to touch. So I tend to get all the things that nobody else wants to think about. But obviously, when I was starting the business, you're chief cook and bottle washer. You're doing everything. You're building the client base. You're closing the new business accounts. You're doing everything from compliance, because we're a regulated business, to the finance side, as well as, managing people and hiring people and trying to build out the team. So, they were long, long days. Um, And as the business has evolved, I mean, over 19 years, I mean, we've lived through different market cycles. Real estate, of course, is highly cyclical. So, living through a couple of years of COVID and then the last couple of years of interest rates effectively doubling, has been challenging. It's been a very challenging time for the real estate investment business. So just, managing people, figuring out how to get things done when the market's been stalled because transaction volume's been so low, figuring out other things to do rather than the traditional business. All of those things are a big part of my job. But today, I have 7 amazing partners and a fantastic team, really phenomenal team. So I have a lot more freedom to spend time supporting our team and talking to people like you. I think if you like to solve problems and think out of the box and be strategic and inspire people, being an entrepreneur is a phenomenal opportunity.
To grow. And I know you were talking about today's market. What are some of the key trends in the market and efficiencies that you're seeing or that you're focused on right now?
Yeah, we look at hundreds of opportunities every year. I mean, probably 1,000 opportunities, both in terms of commingled funds and then portfolios. Um, from a property type standpoint, office, of course, has been out of favor for quite a while, and it's still largely out of favor. Some folks are looking at office to residential conversions, but that's still a very small part of where the capital is flowing. We've spent most of our time either focused on logistics, and there's all different kinds of logistics. There's big box industrial, there's last mile industrial, there's industrial outdoor storage, there's self storage. We've done all of those different things, cold storage, and then what's called living, which would be multifamily, build to rent, any kind of housing, student housing, senior housing. So those have been the two sectors broadly that have been the most attractive to investors, and we've spent a lot of time focused on them. And probably the most popular aspect of the market right now is data centers. So we're spending time on data centers. And then a broader trend that we've been focused on is the coming together of real estate and infrastructure. Infrastructure being more, it could be data center, it could be, a logistics park, it could also be, more bridges and toll roads. And so all the different aspects of the infrastructure are generating more capital interest, largely because of, I think, something you mentioned earlier, which is just consistency of income, lower risk. And so we're looking in that space as well. But it's constantly changing. What we're every year at the beginning of the year we say what should investors be looking at? Where do we think the most interesting things in the market are? And because we work with such a broad range of investors, we're not just looking at one thing, because different investors in the market are going to have different needs. So we will carry maybe 10 or 15 products at any given point in time. If you're not constantly rethinking what's possible, then the market will rethink it for you. So we're always rethinking and reinventing ourselves.
So you got to kind of like stay a little bit, not, I guess kind of able to maneuver when you need to or flex in a different direction if it calls for it.
You have to, absolutely. That's if we didn't, we would have been out of business a long time ago. But that's part of the fun, right? It's not boring. This is definitely not, a factory job where you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Or even like, many professions, um, you kind of just, once you've learned how to do it, you kind of do the same thing over and over again. Investing, by definition, is constantly a learning and growing profession. And you have to be rethinking and be aware of what's going on around you. Um, yeah, and you have to be open-minded as well. Was it Winston Churchill said, "Those who never change their mind never change anything."
That is true. Definitely. And for early career professionals or students out there listening, what is one piece of advice you'd give them that you wish you had received?
Mm, I think probably, I guess I'd say two things. From an investment standpoint, I wish I had understood the power of compounding much earlier in my life because um, early in your career, time is your friend, and compounding is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Um, and from a professional standpoint, I would say the best investment you'll ever make is in the people that you meet and the people that you can build a future with. So I would be focused on really the people that you're working with that you connect with really well and thinking about if you ever wanted.
Can you hear me right now? Okay. I couldn't hear you for some reason towards the end.
Um,
Oh, there you are. Okay, I
okay,
hear
do you want me to repeat that?
probably the
Okay.
last part. It might have caught you on your side, but maybe not, on mine. So just in case, just in case.
So just ask me the question again, so I'll start
Okay.
again.
Okay. So if somebody like your early career professionals or students out there that are listening that might want to go in the industry, or what would be one piece of advice or a couple things you would advise them?
Yeah, from an investment standpoint, I would say appreciate the power of compounding because time is your friend. And from a professional standpoint, I would say, you know, look around at the people you're working with on your first or second job early in your career. Who are the people that you really connect with? And really work at those relationships because if you ever do want to go out on your own, the trust and the loyalty that comes with time and shared experiences are impossible to reproduce. And so those are very valuable relationships that you can build on and build an organization with in the future.
You get to know each other, and that builds that trust and stuff that you're going to need to kind of what you did as far as putting a business together that's going to survive through the different times.
Yeah, and well, I often have thought, I mean, I worked pretty hard at trying to figure out and recruit people who I thought would be good partners, um, because that's the key, right? Business, a service business, a financial firm is largely based upon the people. So
Right, and that interaction. And now, what key traits or habits do you believe are essential for a professional who wants to transition from working in a company to building their own business?
well, I would say willingness to take risk. I often think too, perfection is the enemy of the good. Um, you know, I think I was just fortunate um, to think it was okay to be good enough because few people have the luxury of being perfectionist like a Steve Jobs in their business. And compromise is really, I think, the key. Someone said this to me early on, a friend who I always collected friends who were like a decade older than me because I found I learned there was so much wisdom that came from them. And one of them once said, compromise is the key to success in life. And I've come to really appreciate that. I don't know if it's the key to success, but it's certainly a key to being happy because it's really, really hard to do everything well. Another friend would say, the definition of a working mom is being at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's really hard to do everything exactly the way you want to. So, um, you're strong because you're imperfect and you're wise because you have doubts, and all of that is okay. And just be willing to take risk. I mean, think about. I had it on my wall for a while. Eleanor Roosevelt's quote: "Do one thing that scares you every day."
I like that. That's good. Definitely kind of put your out. What is one major takeaway in leadership that you've learned?
I guess. I mean, obviously, two. Well, I guess I'd say two things. One is courage. Courage is the main quality of leadership, no matter where you exercise it. But you have to be brave. But I think about Warren Buffett, who was, so extraordinary. And I've been fortunate enough to go to a couple of the annual meetings and just listen for hours to his wisdom. But I think if you live a long life and stay healthy, once you're doing something for a really long time, you're bound to get pretty good at it and to build credibility. So keep at it.
And just keep pushing and don't give up. And I guess don't be afraid to fail, sometimes because that's going to happen too, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Failure is part of learning.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us today and talking to us and sharing your insights with other people who want to get into this profession or just want to go out on their own and venture into entrepreneurship and starting their own company.
If you're thinking about it, you know, pass go, just take the leap. It's even if you fail, you will learn so much. It's really hard to look back ever and say, you know, I wish I hadn't. Most people will say, I wish I had done it, not I wish I hadn't done it. And obviously, you need to understand the business that you're trying to launch. So having the right experience before you launch it, and then the right tools around you, whether it's people, capital, resources, you know, be smart about it. But then again, you're never going to have it all lined up perfectly. So you're going to have to jump some point.
And now, if people wanted more information on the company, where would they find that?
Sure. Our website at parkmadisonpartners.com, Park Madison spelled like the streets in Manhattan, and partners.com. And on there, you'll also find a phone number and email addresses.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Melissa.
Thank you for joining the Business Roundup, where we always try to bring you interviews with some of the leading people in business, whether it be technology, finance, or energy. I hope you tune in. I hope you subscribe and listen, and we'll give you updates for new interviews that are coming up. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bill.